So for my fermented food project, I made kombucha. Kombucha is basically a fermented sugary tea. It is fermented with the help of a SCOBY, which is an acronym for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. The SCOBY eats most of the sugar added in the recipe, actually. The bacteria and the yeast form this SCOBY to protect the fermented tea from the air, and it also helps maintain a specific environment in the jar. um, so what is in kombucha? Basically probiotics, which are good bacteria. The intestines love them. Our immune system loves them, and it's also aids in arthritis and other diseases and infections. Uh, Kombucha actually contains less than 1% alcohol, which is a byproduct of the fermentation. The ingredients I used were the tea bags, the sugar, the water, the starter tea, and the SCOBY. The starter tea and the SCOBY I actually bought from a store because you can use them from a previous fermented kombucha drink, but I didn't do one, so I had to get it from a store. So I just got a natural, unflavored kombucha starter tea. I kind of had a 4-step process in making this. I just made the hot tea base, added the sugar, let it dissolve, and then let it cool. I had to let it cool all the way down to about room temperature, so it sat there for about 1 to 2 hours, and then I came back to it. Then I added the starter tea, which was my store-bought kombucha, mixed that together in a jar, of course with ratios and ingredients, and then added the SCOBY. Then I let this ferment for about 7 to 10 days. Some of the microbes that were involved in the process were acetic acid bacteria, yeast species, glucuronic acid, gluconic acid, glucose, fructose, and sucrose. The most abundant prokaryotes cultured in my kombucha are a part of the Acetobacter and Gluconobacter species. Sorry if I mispronounced those. The purpose of adding each ingredient to the recipe, well, the tea is basically just the basis for the drink. That is what kombucha is a fermented tea. So you had to have the tea base. B, the sugar. It creates the fermentation, and it's needed for fermentation. The culture actually consumes it. Sucrose is actually most easy to digest by the yeast, so they consume the sugar and yield or put out CO2 and ethanol. C, the starter tea was added, and this was added to prevent bad bacteria from forming, and it also aids in fermentation, but most of all, it prevents the bad bacteria from forming, which is very important because if I were to just make this tea, there would be no starter good bacteria to fight off the bad bacteria, and these could just form and form and form. D, the SCOBY was added. It aids in fermentation. It also protects the bacteria. So what metabolic processes are the microbes undergoing, and what byproducts are they producing that changes the food? What changes occur during fermentation? Very important questions. So basically, during the metabolic process, yeast hydrolyze the sucrose into glucose and fructose, and this produces ethanol through glycolysis. Acetic acid bacteria is then makes use of the glucose to produce gluconic acid and ethanol, which produces acetic acid. The pH value also changes. It decreases due to the production of organic acids during fermentation. So to break down the steps, first yeast breaks down sucrose into glucose and fructose. These two sugars then undergo fermentation by the yeast, producing alcohol. Lastly, some of the alcohol is also converted to acetic acid by bacterial action. One of the questions was, does the amount of oxygen, CO2, pH change, alcohol change, temp change? All of those changed, except temperature. All of those changed. Most of all, the pH changed. And the pH change occurs because the bacteria in kombucha metabolizes sugar into lactic acid. This acid, along with the acetic acid that was produced in how I explained earlier, lowers the pH, making it very acidic, around a 2 acidity, which is very acidic. It's vinegary, acidic. You can even smell it whenever I took the top off. Was I successful in making my food or drink? Yes, I would have to say that I was successful. The only thing I probably would have changed is letting it ferment a little bit longer to thicken the SCOBY at the bottom. My SCOBY is actually growing at the bottom. I started fermenting my tea last Tuesday, which was the 7th, and today's the 16th, so I let it ferment for 9 days. You can ferment a tea, it says 7 to 10 days, but you can ferment it, the kombucha, up to weeks and weeks. The longer you let it ferment, the more acidic it will get. The SCOBY will thicken more too. So actually, here is my kombucha. The end result. This right here on the bottom is actually the SCOBY that it was produced during fermentation, and there's bits and pieces floating around throughout too. It is a very strong vinegary smell. You can smell it outside this cloth. But I'm probably gonna let it ferment for maybe a week or two more, and then let the SCOBY thicken, because you can actually use it on your face. You can use it. You can eat it. You can do many things with it. So I'm gonna do that. And if you'd like to see the actual pictures of the process, I'm gonna add those to this, and then I'm also gonna add the before picture of this without the SCOBY in it and without all the things floating around. So that will be added, and that's it.